So today we have a short little lesson on the work population of the United States. Let's just get started. Let's see. Here we go. So first off, we'll have a couple of learning objectives here. By the end of this lesson, students should be able to understand who is eligible to work in the U.S., as well as who is not eligible to work, and have kind of a basic understanding of how the workforce is comprised and how to calculate rates of unemployment, composition, eligible population, things like that. So first off, who is eligible to work? Well, the minimum weight or the minimum age to legally work is 16, but not everyone that is older than that is eligible to work. And in some cases, someone may be severely disabled, institutionalized. Those people, of course, aren't eligible to work. They can't perform basic job functions. And anyone under 16 is also ineligible. In some cases, they're permitted to work with a permit or in certain states under certain conditions. For example, like a 15-year-old can do yard work for someone, or some fast food restaurants may hire people at 15 with a work permit, but they are not considered legally eligible. They're not part of the labor force. It's just not counted in the total. So as of 2017, just for kind of a baseline reference, there were 254 million Americans over the age of 16. Not all of them were eligible, of course, but that was just the general, you start with that group. From there, it gets a little narrower. You have the labor force. So the labor force is the total number of people who are eligible over 16 and capable of performing basic job duties who are currently employed or actively seeking employment. Someone doesn't necessarily have to have a job at the moment. They may be between jobs. They may be structurally unemployed. They could be out of a job for any number of reasons, but as long as they're actively seeking work, they are still considered part of the labor force. In the US, this number as of 2017 in reference to the other number was 160 million, or about 63% of that original over 200 million. Of those in the labor force, 152 million of the 160 were currently working, employed, had a job, they were working for wages. Unemployment, we'll segue into unemployment. To be unemployed or considered legally unemployed, one must have been part of the labor force or is currently part of the labor force. To be considered part of the labor force, you have to be willing and able to work. For a number of reasons, some people may not be able to work. There's some legitimate ones, some not so legitimate ones. For legitimate examples, someone may be taking care of an elderly relative with health problems, maybe taking care of a child, maybe pursuing higher education, any number of things. They're just not able to work. But they are not considered unemployed. They are not considered part of the labor force at all. Some other reasons, people that, for example, are in jail, things like that, aren't considered part of the labor force. Someone who wants to, as an adult, wants to sit around and play video games all day and not seeking a job, anything like that, not considered unemployed. Contrary to popular belief, they're just not considered part of the labor force. But people that are currently seeking a job, if you look at the picture down there on the right, people that are currently seeking a job but do not have a job are considered unemployed. And I believe the legal definition for America, the last time I checked, was if you are unemployed and you have not been currently or actively seeking a job for the past 4 weeks, you're counted as unemployed. So back to that 2017 number, 7.6 million of the eligible population were unemployed, so out of a job but seeking employment. So here's how to calculate the percentage of the eligible population in the labor force. Start with your eligible population. Let's just assume you got a very small country. You have 100 that are your eligible over 16, not institutionalized people that could potentially work. Of that 100, let's say you have 67 that are willing and able to work. They don't have other commitments. They're able-bodied. They have the motivation. List goes on. They're able to work. So to calculate the percentage that is in the labor force, you take the number that are seeking employment or employed and divide by the total. So in this case, you've got 67 out of 100. From there, you get a decimal, convert your decimal to a percentage, pretty straightforward. So you get 67% of the eligible population are participating in the labor force. From there, you narrow it down to unemployment. Of the workforce, you have 67 people. Let's say 9 of them are out of a job, but they're filling out applications, making phone calls, things like that. They're seeking employment. To calculate your unemployment rate as a percentage, you divide that number by the total labor force. So you take your 9 that are unemployed and divide by the total of 67. So you get a decimal of 0.13. And you convert that over to 13%. So your unemployment rate for that given group is 13%. Pretty straightforward. And here's a little practice one. And I encourage you to pause the video, consider this, do your measurements and see if you get the answer right on the next slide. So let's say you have 163 people who are willing and able to work, but you only have 137 that are currently working for wages. What is your unemployment rate? And again, take a minute, pause, do some calculations. And the total is 15.9%. You get there, you take your 163 total, you have 26 that aren't currently working or not, they're out of a job for some reason. Divide that 26 by the total of 163, you get 0.159 or 15.9%. And in conclusion, basically your eligible population is those who are of legal age and able to work. Those who are under 16, incarcerated, institutionalized, the list goes on, are not considered part of your eligible population. And your labor force is the number of those eligible who are both willing and able to work. And your unemployment rate refers to those who are currently participating in the labor force but out of a job, but are seeking a job or have previously worked, things like that. It does not refer to the total number of the population that is not employed. That's kind of a common misconception that people generally think anyone who is not employed for one reason or another it falls under the blanket term of unemployed, when in reality unemployment refers to a very specific group that is part of the labor force but out of work. So that's about all I've got, and I have a short little quiz in the description. Thank you for watching.